G'day everyone and welcome along to my humble home studio and my very first, semi-live stream. Obviously, I'm recording it live, but there's a reason that it's not going live. This is brand new technology for me and I would rather record it. In one take, I've just pressed record and then we are rolling, but I wanted to make sure I didn't stuff it up live. So here you go. It's Thursday nights or whenever you're listening to this. And I want to say thank you to everyone who took the time to give me some questions on the Todd Sargent Radio Show Facebook page about radio, flying, or anything to kind of do with my career. So I got a whole stack of questions. I reckon I've probably got about 40, maybe 50 questions. And I've also got some email questions as well. So grab yourself a drink. This is ice water. It is not vodka, and it's not even a shandy. So let's get it underway. G'day, Lynn. Lynn said, do you bop along to the music that you play? Lynn, absolutely. Obviously, you're busy in the studio. If you really, really like the song, yeah, you do bop along. There may have been times where you've seen me through the webcam dancing and moving to the music. If you love the song, you're going to crank it up and you're going to have a listen to it. That being said, it's only really the songs that you really, really like. So other times you're getting ready for interviews or you're taking phone calls or you're working out what you're going to be saying. But yeah, absolutely. That's embarrassing, wasn't it? You like to get the shimmy on. So yes, and virtually every radio announcer does bop along. Some sing along, and it's been known in the past that some radio announcers, not mentioning any names, will turn the microphone on and maybe have a bit of a sing in the background. And they have been caught over the years. Rather embarrassing and awkward. But anyway, yeah, we do bop along to the music. Adam, g'day. Ads, he is one of our favourite fans. He said, how long have you been in radio for now, all up? And has 2NURFM been your longest stint? Great question. I was working that out. I started in radio the day of my 18th birthday. So 1986. So I've been in radio since 1986. So that's 96, 2006, 2016, 35 years. Am I right? How bad is that for mathematics? Maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, I've been in radio for a long, long time. I started on my birthday, and there's a bit of a story to that too, because I used to work at Steggles. And if you're from around the Newcastle area or around Australia, you will know that Steggles makes chicken and small goods and poultry products. And where I lived in Taro, the next suburb over, Beresfield, had a chicken processing plant. And I worked there. And there were some really cool people and I enjoyed working there, but it's not what I wanted to do. And it was the day before my 18th birthday. And Gavin Morris, who if you're around Newcastle, you will know is the Channel 9 news and weatherman. He started off in radio as well. And we were good mates. We worked together at McDonald's Hexham for many, many years. And I got a phone call because Gavin knew I wanted to get into radio as well. And he was working at 2NX at that stage and he was ready to move on to the next stage of his career. So I got a call at home on the landline, walked over, phone rang, Mum answered the phone and it was Gavin. And he said, hey, would you be interested in taking my job at 2NX? And I'm like, absolutely. Come in tomorrow morning for an interview and we'll see where you go from there. So basically that was it. On my 18th birthday, drove into Radio 2NX and the rest is history. So it's been a long time. Has 2NURFM been my longest stint? Absolutely. And radio, any media job is very, very unstable. And there's a running joke that radio announcers don't generally get long service leave. So, yep. I'm 24 years at 2NURFM. So ads, it is my longest stint. Obviously, I started in commercial radio, 2NX, then I went to Brisbane to work at a radio station in Brisbane, there to Cairns, from Cairns down to Cooma, so from the beautiful tropical heat down to the freezing cold of winter, and then back to Newcastle and various stages of 2NX to X13, X107 and NXFM. So yeah, it has been my longest stint. Janet says, when you're not in the studio, I should have put my glasses on. If I look like Mr. Magoo, I apologise. Janet says, when you're not on the radio, do you listen to the radio or any other station? Good question. As all your questions are good. Look, I used to. Generally now, when I'm not on the radio, I'll be listening to 2NURFM. My role, apart from the breakfast announcer, is content manager. So basically, I'm responsible for everything, every sound that goes to air. So yeah, I'll listen to 2NURFM, obviously. When I'm not, generally no. I know what else is happening in town as far as other radio stations are concerned. Janet, when I travel, no. After all these years, once upon a time, yes, you'd get to town and the first thing you would do is go and find the radio station and you'd tune in. But generally, no. If I'm on holidays or if I'm away, I don't generally tune in because you go into work mode then. You're not just listening to the music, you're going into work mode. That being said, sometimes I will if I go to a town or I go to a city where I hear there's a great presenter or a great announcer or a great team, I'll tune in and have a little bit of a listen. Let's have a look at one of my emails from John. Do you get... What a great question. Do you get any negative feedback of your show and how does it affect you? Look, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't do radio or any performance job where you don't get complaints. You will say something one day that someone doesn't like. You will think something is funny or you'll give an opinion. And there's always going to be someone. You try and keep it so most people are happy. But yeah, absolutely, John, you'll always get someone who's not happy. How does it affect you? Look, I'm human. I'm like anyone else. No one likes to be criticised for what they do. I've become a little bit more thick-skinned. It depends what it is. If it's just that someone doesn't like a song or didn't like my opinion, then it doesn't really worry me. Sometimes they're very, very personal. They're very, very personal attacks. But that's when you're in the public eye and doing what I do, then that happens. So yeah, it's not overly fantastic, but it is what it is. Carol, how much do you have to pay to win an invite to Restaurant of the Month? And Sue said, yeah, we should gate crash. You don't have to pay any money. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to any competitions at 2NURFM or basically any radio station, the announcers, the DJs have nothing to do with it. The draws are done from barrels and it happens. So when it comes to Restaurant of the Month, you can slip me $100. Please feel free to do that. Okay, $200, $300 is no guarantee you're going to get a seat. So happy to take your money, but no, you can bribe all you want. But yeah, it is just the luck of the draw. So there you go. Elizabeth, how long did it take? This is a flying question. Cool. How long did it take to get your flying license and how often do you have to renew it? It was a fair amount of time because it was, I had a period where I actually broke a couple of ribs. I broke 4 ribs in a dirt bike accident. And as you can imagine, I'm 6'2" and trying to squeeze into a little Cessna 172 is not easy at the best of times. And with 4 busted ribs, it wasn't overly good. So I was out of action for about 7 months. We also had COVID come into the equation where, I couldn't fly. It was just the way it was. So I think it took me around 4 years to get my recreational pilot's license. And now I have my private pilot license. And I'm going to geek out on you a little bit here, Elizabeth, because the difference is between the RPL, the recreational pilot license, and the PPL, the private pilot's license. With the RPL, you can't fly overseas. I can fly anywhere in the world as a private pilot. Also, navigation and meteorology. So as an RPL, I can take passengers. I can take up to 4 passengers, but I've got to take off and land at the same airport. So take Cessnock, for example. If I can take off, but I've got to land at Cessnock. So having the private pilot license now means I can take off at Cessnock and I can land on the Gold Coast or Port Macquarie or any other airfield. How often do you have to renew it? Every 2 years, I have to go and have a check, a biannual check. And basically what happens, I'll generally catch up with an instructor. Phil Unicum and I will go for a fly and he will put me through a whole load of a whole load of tests and basically just get me back to where I need to be in relation to performing the skills. He needs to see that I know what I'm doing and he'll run me through things. So once every 2 years, and if I do everything correct, he goes, not a problem, and you can keep flying. So yeah, once every 2 years. Another Elizabeth, not Elizabeth Kimazuka, but Elizabeth Ruse. I really should. I'm gonna make my font bigger. This is terrible. Heaven forbid. Here we go. Told you I was Mr. Magoo. I blame the computers. Mind you, I blame the computers for my thinning hair as well. Elizabeth Ruse, how many radio interviews are pre-recorded and then put to air? Look, it really depends. Some radio interviews are live where you'll have someone come into the studio. A lot of radio interviews are pre-recorded. And the reason for that is the artist or the person that you're interviewing might not be available at that time. So say, for example, if you worked a nighttime program and you're interviewing a music artist and you're on at 9 o'clock at night, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to be performing somewhere at that time of night. So if it's an overseas interview, you might have time zone issues. They may just be unavailable. So yeah, a lot of interviews are pre-recorded, and that's generally because the person that will be doing the interview, the guest, just isn't available at the time. So yeah, a lot of them are, but a lot of them are put to air live as well. Elizabeth has come back with another question. Do you all choose the music for your own segments? The answer to that is no. And having a look at 2NURFM, across the day, no, none of the presenters choose their own music. So it's picked out for them across the day. So technically, I do choose my own music because I'm responsible for every song that we play on 2NURFM. And the content manager is always responsible for the music that's played on a radio station. So technically, I do. Across the day, no, our presenters don't. And there's a good reason for that. And I'm putting myself up front in this situation. I would only play the music I wanted to hear. So if I had the choice of playing the music, then it would only be the songs I like. And just because I don't like a song doesn't mean it's not a great song. So I would be a little bit too biased in my musical tastes, and that's not good. So that's one of the reasons why our presenters don't. And generally in major radio stations and commercial music stations, none of the presenters have a say in the music that they play. At 2NURFM, we've got like the blues program, and we've got jazz, and we've got country. Any specialist program at 2NURFM, the presenters do get to pick their own music because they're kind of experts in that particular genre of music. So yeah, they get to pick their music. Robin said, okay, this is another flying question. What led you to wanting to learn to fly? Do you have any further aspirations for your flying? Always wanted to fly from a toddler. From a toddler, I tell you. I always wanted to fly. I had some aspirations of joining the RAF and learning to fly, but I was a lazy student and mathematics was always hard for me, and I had trouble following orders. Bet you don't believe that, but it's true. So I wanted to join the RAF, and that slipped away. I've always loved aviation. I've always loved planes. I used to build model planes when I was younger as well. So I know that seems very daggy, but very daggy indeed, but I really enjoyed doing that. So always wanted to learn to fly. Do I have any further aspirations for flying? People ask me, would I ever go and become a commercial pilot? No. At 56, could I do it? Yes. Is it impossible? No. Would it cost me a whole lot of money? Absolutely. And let's be realistic. You don't want to get on a plane and you're sitting there and you're comfortable in your seat and you're elbowing the person beside you and putting the tray table up and putting your knees into the seat of the people in front of you, and then hear, "Hello, passengers, this is Todd Sargent, and we're taking you on a flight." You're not going to want to hear that. So, no, I'll leave commercial flying to the youngsters, the young men and women who are flying. But I will tell you, I will have an announcement of the next thing I will be doing in regard to flying in the next month or so. So stick around. Thank you, Robin. Bron said, what is your process for preparing your show each morning? Yeah, so I get into the station, so I'm on the air from 6. I generally, and you notice I'm bouncing. I don't have ants in my pants. I've actually got one of those balls, those exercise balls in the studio. So if something happens and it bursts and you see me hit the floor, you'll know what happened. Brian said, what's your process for preparing your show each morning? So I get into the station at between 3:30 and around 3:45. And then I will go and basically just prepare for the day. So I'll go and check the birthdays and make sure I've got my birthday list. I'll check the weather. I'll make sure the studio is set up how I like it and how I like things. And then I go looking for things that have been making news overnight, what's been happening in the world, and basically do a catch up of the last 12 hours or so, and then just go hunting for the stories that I'll be doing during the program. So on air for 3 hours, I pretty much talk once every 3 minutes or so. And then I'll collate all of that information. I don't have scripts to work from. I'll have information, but I don't have scripts. So I'll just have little bits of information, a story on this, a story on that, a story on the other. Generally, I want to make them more fun than anything. I think the world is way too serious at the moment. So from about 4:30, I'm in there really preparing. And generally, I walk into the studio at around about 5 to 6. So it's just catching up, getting together and working out what I'm going to talk about during the day. And every day, the interesting part about it is I might have some topics ready for tomorrow, but there's a lot of times I'll walk into the station and I'm just preparing from that point on. So some days you have a lot of stories, some days you don't have a lot of stories. And if you can carry some over, that's great. Diane, hello, Diane. What made you want to get into radio? Fantastic question. I left school in year 10 and I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was a bricklayer, and after helping him out from time to time, I knew I didn't want to be a bricklayer. And basically I wanted a job where I didn't get my hands dirty and I could meet girls. And I thought radio would be the logical thing for me. And as I mentioned, a mate of mine, Gavin Morris, from working with him at McDonald's, he was doing it. And I thought this would be really, really cool. I loved music, didn't have trouble talking, a bit of a class clown. So I thought, maybe, just maybe radio is going to be for me. But I've got to say, I'm not like a lot of radio people who knew at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 that they wanted to be a radio announcer and used to pretend and do that kind of thing. I was a bit of a late adopter to radio, as I am with most things. Let's have a look at another email. This is from Kathy. Ever thought of getting into TV? Look, in all honesty, I have, but let's face it, I've got a great face for radio. So no, it would be nice, it would be interesting, but unfortunately for me, Kathy, I ain't pretty enough for radio. Chris, do you have any radio people that you look up to, or you admire, or you use as mentors? Not really. It's kind of funny. I've worked with some really, really amazing, talented people throughout the years. I don't really hold anyone up to a mentor. I just basically try and be me. Obviously, you've got people like John Laws, and whether you like Kyle Sandilands or not, a lot of people do, a lot of people don't, but he's very good at what he does. So you have people like that. David Jones, a local Newcastle radio and Melbourne radio DJ, an absolute legend and one of the most talented presenters that I've ever worked in the same building with. So no, not necessarily, Chris. I love good talent. I love listening to good radio talent, and more importantly, I love stealing their ideas. But don't tell them. Please don't tell them. Ray said, when will the university radio station have more university students on the air? Thanks, Ray. Yeah, 2NURFM isn't a university radio station. A lot of people think that it is, but we're actually a community station and operate under a community radio license, and the University of Newcastle holds that license. So technically, yeah, they're the license holders. Look, radio for a lot of young people is becoming a little bit old-fashioned. Obviously, you've got people like TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, where this video will be seen on Facebook and later on down the line on YouTube. So, look, anytime the university students want to come in and have a chat about a program idea, absolutely more than happy to hear from them. And we're always looking for great new ideas as well. So in answer to your question, basically we're not allowed to go and put a bag over someone's head, give them a donk and on the head and bring them back. You can't steal people and bring them into the radio station. So yeah, when people want to do that, when students are interested, and if they've got a program idea, then yeah, absolutely. So that is a good question. Wendy Ewan? Sorry, Wendy, I'm just going to say Wendy. What made you want to work at 2NURFM instead of a commercial radio station? Well, as I said, I started in commercial. So I started at Radio 2NX and I worked at a whole load of commercial radio stations throughout my life. I hope I'm not getting too much. Sorry if you're getting the... So around 2000, you may or may not be aware of this, but 2NURFM was almost going to be closed down at one stage. And there's a long story to what happened, but the University of Newcastle said, okay, we need to make some changes. And basically John McGann, who if you're a 2NURFM listener, you'll know is our Sunday Sunrise presenter. And John was brought in to be general manager. At that stage, I was taking a break from radio for about 12 months. I just needed a bit of a break from headphones and microphones. And John gave me a call and he said, hey, look, we're doing this, and this. Would you like to come and be a part of the program and take the station forward, or hopefully take the station forward? So yeah, that's Wendy. That's why I joined 2NURFM, but I started off in commercial, and commercial radio. It's very cutthroat. It's a very tough business. So that gave me a really great grounding, and the skills that I learned in commercial radio really helped me when I was coming across to 2NURFM. Moving forward, Gordon Tyndall. Gordon is a rising contributor. Good on you, Gordon. You know, if you might go from a rising contributor to a top contributor. What it takes, I don't know. But anyway, Todd, what has been your most embarrassing moment while on air, any station? Probably my most embarrassing moment was at NXFM. And we used to do this competition in the breakfast program called Battle of the Sexes. And basically it was pitting men against women and their knowledge. And then it was always the girls in front or the guys in front. Oh, they're even. Are the guys going to jump ahead? Or the girls going to jump ahead? And it became very, very boring. And we used to use reel-to-reel players. And if you don't know what they are basically what they say they are. They're a reel of tape on one side and a reel of tape on the other side, and it would run from reel to reel. And that's how we recorded our calls. So we didn't put the competition live to air. And the way that a reel-to-reel player works is there's one head. I'm sorry if I'm getting geeky here, but, you know, Gordon, you asked the question. It records on one head, then it runs across a playhead, which generally isn't a problem. Long story short, I had a fader up and the fader turned on. And not only was it recording in, but it was playing out live to air. And I made some remarks that were a little bit unprofessional about how I felt about the segments. And look, I won't say any more. That was one of my most embarrassing moments. So that was at NXFM. And it was a very uncomfortable conversation with my program manager after the shift. So yeah, there's been plenty of embarrassing moments, but not too many, thankfully. And well, not too many that were job threatening. Janet, is there a few second delay button for when someone makes a boo-boo? Yes, there is. We generally call it a 7-second delay. Now, I don't use it, but we have one at the station. And you'll find in a lot of talkback stations, they have the 7-second delay. And how it works is it's computerized now. But what you would do, you would be on the air and then you would activate it. And basically it was a loop tape. And if you're a radio technician, and I'm getting this wrong, please feel free to put it in the comments and let me know. But what would happen is you needed to basically have it warm up. So you would have 7-second delay. So what would happen is, like we're talking now, if I was interviewing you and you said a rude word, a blue word, or you said something defamatory about someone, what I would immediately do is we'd dump the call. And your call would drop out and I would go and listen 7 seconds in advance. So what would happen is I would hear that this boo-boo was coming up, and what would happen is I'd be waiting and waiting and waiting, and I would know when you were going to say what you're going to say, and I would jump in with something like, oh, look, unfortunately, we've lost Janet, or whatever, and then you would go back into your program. So that's how it works. It stops defamation and all those kind of things. So a lot of stations do use them. It's not a whole lot of fun. It's a lot of faffing around, but if it protects you from legal action, it's a good thing. So, yeah, we call it the 7-second delay. I don't even know. Why 7 seconds? I don't know. If you know, please leave it in the comments and tell me. Chris, what has been your best day on air and why? That is an interesting question. Sometimes the best days on air aren't always the happiest days on air. Sometimes the best days on air are when there are things going wrong and you can be there to keep the audience, to keep you guys informed. Bushfires, I remember back in 1990 when I was working at Cairns, we had Cyclone Joy came through, and I think I was on the air for about maybe close to 12 hours or about 10 hours in a studio that didn't have air conditioning. And you're probably thinking, oh, boo-hoo. But you're in a box, a padded box, with no airflow and no air conditioning, and we got a cyclone bearing down, and it's really scary. And I think I was about 21, maybe 22 at the time, 23 at the most, I think 22. And you're reading out big, long weather forecasts, and you don't get a chance to abbreviate them. You read it from top to bottom, and it could take you 3 minutes to read the forecast, and you had sirens bellowing and that kind of thing. So whilst it wasn't the most fun day on the air, they're the days where it really makes a difference. So probably the best days are when we can help the community and do that kind of thing. Days where things just flow naturally are really fun. Having people in the studio for our brekkie benches is always a whole load of fun as well. And getting out to do outside broadcasts, that's a great day on air as well. So hopefully, Chris, that answers your question. Janet's got a whole lot of questions here. So let's start at the start and end at the end. What do you reckon? Okay. What makes a DJ successful? If you're in commercial radio, survey results. So if you are meeting your targets for your demographic, that makes you successful. If your boss is happy with you, that makes you successful as well. So that's the physical side of things. If you rate, no radio announcer is going to be successful in keeping their job for any long period of time if they don't win ratings. 2NURFM isn't in the ratings, and I think we've got a question about that a little bit later on. What do I think makes a DJ successful is the ability to communicate. A lot of people think, and a lot of people get into radio and they think, oh, I'm just here talking at people. Well, no, I'm talking to you, just like I'm talking to you now. So someone who is engaging, someone who's authentic, and someone who thinks about their community and localism is very important. So if you can combine all those things, I think that's really important. Do you find it hard to switch off at the end of your day? A little bit. You know, I'm only on the air for 3 hours, but I have other work to do as the role of content manager. So when I get off the air at 9 o'clock, I generally go for a 4K walk. It takes me about 50 minutes, and it allows me to come down, because when you're on the air, you're going at such a frenetic pace. Every couple of minutes you're talking and you're flying by to see your pants, and this is happening and that's happening. So yeah, sometimes I find it really, really hard. And then you just go into that quiet mode because you've You've talked yourself silly for 3 hours. So yeah, it does take a little bit to come down at times. And generally you tend to go a little bit quieter after that. What do you see happening in radio in the next 10 years? That is another good question. AI, I'm fascinated by AI. I think AI will come into play in radio a heck of a lot. You're probably going to see more networking, which I don't think is a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing for small towns. Having one presenter in a big city that broadcasts to 20 or 30 stations, I don't think is good, and I don't think it's good for localism in the town. Terrestrial radio, and by terrestrial radio I mean standard radio, from a transmitter, for example, at Mount Sugarloaf, more and more is going to be on the phone. It's going to be more and more portable. So I do think, though, radio is going to become more and more important for localism. And as you get more networks who are coming in with a very generic program, stations like 2NURFM and community stations and small country stations who really cater to their market is going to become very, very important. As far as technology is concerned, hey, 5 years is very hard to guess, but I still think portability is going to be the big thing, and your radio is going to be in your hand, apps and those kind of things. Who would be your top three people to include in your show and why? Don't know what you mean by that, Janet. Do you mean guests on the show, or people who come in, or who would you like, or who would I like to pop in? To pop into the show. If you mean interviewees or people to talk to, love the guests that I've got that come in on a weekly basis anyway. I often get asked who I would like to interview if I had the opportunity to interview anyone. And that is such a hard question. But I gave it some thought, and Michael Collins, who was one of the astronauts on Apollo 11, and he was the astronaut that didn't go down to the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. And I would have always loved to interview Michael Collins and just find out how it felt to be the guy who didn't get to go to the moon. And also, was it lonely? And how he would have felt if something had gone wrong and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin couldn't get off the moon, and he had to just basically start it up and fly back to Earth on his own. I always thought that would have been an amazing interview to have. So, apart from that, I like to talk to anyone who's fun and anyone who can put a smile on someone's face. Do you have a few second delay like the ejector seat? What a great way to call the 7-second delay an ejector seat, but I've touched on that. Hey, let's have a look at another email. James said, what would you do if you weren't doing radio? That's a really great question. Now I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have a whole lot of skills in any other area. I like teaching radio. I like teaching people media. So yeah, maybe a teaching role or something along those lines. I'd really love to be able to take the radio show on the road, either to fly to a town and set up a radio show there, or get a little coaster van and drive around. So no, I don't really know. Hopefully when I find out, it will be by my doing and not someone else's. So it might be a little bit easier. So sorry, James, I can't really answer that question. But if I think about it, I'll get back to you. Rhonda said, what made you want to learn to fly? Always wanted to fly, and just the excitement of it. And I was really lucky. A gentleman by the name of Peter Telling was doing some work at 2NURFM, and he was a pilot and an instructor, and he took me for a fly one day, and I really loved it. And then I met Captain Phil Unicum, and we became great mates, and it went from there. So I've always wanted to do it. It's a challenge, and it's a little bit scary. If you're in a car and the car breaks down, you just roll to the side of the road. But in an aircraft, it's just you. And I really love that feeling. It's exciting. Very, very exciting. Jeannie, how do you not burst into laughter if something really funny is said or done while you're on the air? I do. I don't care. If I find it funny, and if you've listened to the radio station or 2NURFM for any period, if I find something funny, I can't help myself. And I will laugh. And the problem is, if I laugh, I start to hiccup. So, no, I believe that laughter is infectious. Real laughter is infectious, not canned laughter or fake laughter. So, no, if I find it funny, I'm going to laugh. And depending how funny I find it, depends how long I laugh for. So, Phil, you put a lot of time and effort into radio, and I know you go flying, but apart from that, do you have much spare time to just do whatever you feel like? Yeah, I do put a lot of time into radio. Look, obviously I'm like anyone else. So my day generally is, say, from around 3:30, 3:45 till around midday. After that, I'm just out doing general things. I come home, I mow the lawn, and I do those kind of things. I like riding my motorbike. I like stand-up paddling. I just do standard things I do get time, and generally I don't work on the weekend. So yeah, no, I just noodle around and do things that other people do. So hate mowing my lawn. I don't get any pleasure out of that. No pleasure at all. Lynn, has the broadcast of radio changed since you started working? And if so, how? Boy, has it changed, Lynn. It has really changed. So when I started in 1986 and you walk into a studio, there were singles, there was vinyl, you'd be playing singles, there were carts, there were reel-to-reel players. If you'd have said to me when I started in radio, hey, in the near future, 10, 20 years' time, you'll walk into a radio studio and it will be all computerized, I would have said you were balmy. So we've gone from playing vinyl and even CDs. You don't really play anymore. So, yeah, as far as the broadcast is concerned, no, you talk into a microphone, you play music or you interview or you've got the news, it goes to the transmitter, it goes to a stick on the roof, it gets microwave to a transmission site and broadcast. So that stayed pretty much the same. Digital radio and digital broadcasting's changed a little bit. Apps have really changed. Apps have really changed the landscape. The ability to take your radio station with you wherever you go in the palm of your hand is very, very cool. Because think about it, if you drove out of town, you'd be listening to your radio station and gradually it'd start to fade out and you'd be trying to tune it in and it would go. So yeah, it's given you the opportunity to do that. Radio itself, the ethos of radio hasn't changed. Localism, being relevant, being authentic, and talking to people, not at them. It's not me, I'm broadcasting to you. It's like we're having a conversation. And for me, radio is a real lean in. If I want to talk to you, if I've got something to say, if I've got a story, it's like if you and I were sitting in a cafe or having a beer. So yeah, it hasn't changed a whole lot. The technology obviously has changed a heck of a lot. David's also a rising contributor. Congratulations. What do you do when an interview goes in a direction unexpected and possibly not suitable to go to air? If you are live, and you can generally tell if an interview is not going the way you want it to go. And very rarely does it do a 180 and, completely takes you back the other way. If you kind of get the feeling that something's not going right, you can... If it's a radio interview and they're on the telephone, you can pretend that the line's dropped out. Sorry, Barry, you're cutting. Click. Fantastic. If they're in the studio, you'll generally use the old media line. Well, we're out of time now, Barry, but thank you so much. If you've pre-recorded it, you can do one of two things. If you think you can salvage the interview, and maybe the person being interviewed has had a bad day or they're just tired, and you think you can salvage it. Other times you'll be doing an interview and it's just going nowhere for no real reason. You don't have to put it to air. So that interview may just be erased. Years ago, you might have to do an interview that you knew was never going to go to air, and that would be recorded on sugar tape. So yeah, there was no tape running and no recording. So yeah, things happen, live radio, and that's what I love about live radio, is that things can happen and you've just got to roll with the punches. You don't have a safety net like in the movies or a television series where they can go, cut, pick it up, you're doing it live, a little bit like live theatre. The show's just got to go on. My last email is from Andrew. This has got nothing to do with radio or flying. He said... if you had to give up pizza or ice cream, which one would it be? I've been thinking about that email since that came through a couple of days ago, Andrew. I'd have to give up ice cream because pizza is my favourite food. If I was on death row and I had my last meal, and I don't want to think about that because that'd be really nasty, it would be pizza. So yeah, I would still miss ice cream, but I could still have chocolate because he didn't say if you had to give up ice cream and chocolate. So yeah, I'd give up ice cream and stick with pizza. Where are we? We've had David, we've got Glenn. Who was the most difficult person you had to interview, and who had the strangest request before being interviewed? Okay, well, let's do the last part first in relation to that. You don't get any requests from stars for interviews. So it's not like a concert or appearing on someone's show. That you don't get this rider that says, look, the green room has to have soft, fluffy pillows and 3 white doves and a bowl of green M&Ms and, a mermaid playing a harp. You don't get all of that because generally you're either doing it on the phone or they're into the studio and they're out of the studio. Who was the most difficult person you had to interview? I've got to be really honest. Sometimes you may consider someone difficult, but maybe turning the spotlight or the mirror on you leads to that situation. So, for example, when I started out and not knowing how to interview, often you'd interview someone and you'd basically answer the question for them so they could only give yes or no answers. So you learn to ask open questions. Annie Lennox, I interviewed her many, many years ago, and she was very, very curt. It was yes, no, and I don't have a copy. I don't have a copy, Glenn, of that interview to go back and have a listen. Look, I'm going to put the blame on myself because I love Annie Lennox. I think she's fantastic. Some people have a bad day and they're tired, and a lot of these people are on the interview circuit, especially on the phone. They've got a new album out or they're on a concert tour, and there's this window where every 15 minutes or 20 minutes they're at another radio station and they're being asked the same question. So I'd probably be a little bit of a grumpy bum if that was the case. But yeah, Annie Lennox was kind of tough. Some people are easier to talk to than others, but I think a lot of times it comes from you. Judy, also another rising contributor. Hello, Jude. Hey, Jude. Todd, do you plan to have a career in radio, or did it just sort of happen? And yes, I agree with Carol about the bribe for Restaurant of the Month. Yeah, I kind of answered that question a little bit earlier. No, I never had plans. I would have been probably 16, 17 when I got the idea that I wanted to do it. And I went to radio school. I went to a couple of radio schools to learn presentation. And I've got to tell you, I was really crap when I started. I reckon it took me a good 3 years to start to get into my skin as an announcer. And I think probably only the last maybe 20 years or so, I've started to slip into my personality, who I am and how I am. So, no, I didn't always plan a career in radio. It just did sort of happen. And I'm very grateful for it. You may not be grateful for it as a listener, but I am. Deborah, I'm curious as to why... okay, this is a flying question. I'm curious as to why you can't fly in fog. I was delayed, along with a lot of others, at Williamtown for 6 hours. 10 flights were delayed, so as you can imagine, that's a lot of people in a small airport. Thing is, if all of these people arrived at the airport by road, planes are a lot more sophisticated than cars, so how come we can drive in fog but we can't fly? There are times, Deborah, where we probably shouldn't drive in fog, where it's the smart thing to do would not be on the road. I don't think I'm qualified to answer that question because I don't know the specifics. And it bamboozles me at times. Some days there can be fog and there is no delays. Other times there can be fog and there's delays. It could be if we get a very severe fog and Sydney has a severe fog, it can really affect the planes flying in and out. And generally, if there's a hiccup somewhere, it affects everything down the line. Yes, they are very technically advanced. For example, I can't take off in fog. I am qualified what's called VFR, Visual Flight Rules. And then you've got IFR, which is Instrument Flight Rules, which is all the technology. So, and all of these modern planes, the 737s and the A380s and all of your modern aircraft, even your modern prop aircraft are all equipped with a lot of technology. Why exactly you were delayed, I don't know. I could take a guess, but I probably wouldn't be right. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I would rather not answer than answer with something that's incorrect. So yeah, it's a good question. I'm sorry for your inconvenience. I hope you got the last croissant at the snack bar. Janet said, do you have any special routine to care for your voice prior to your show? No, not at all. I'm not like a singer who will get in and... la 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 la, lily lally lolly, the quick red fox jumps over the brown, whatever. Probably should. A lot of presenters do. So no, I think singing is a heck of a lot harder. And obviously singers have to do that. We're just talking in that situation. When you do commercials, what we call voiceovers, television commercials, radio commercials, video voiceovers. You know that the heavy. Sometimes it's car yards, or sometimes it's electrical retailers where you scream. That can take its toll on your voice. And I did. And still do voiceovers for many years. And yeah, you can come out of a voiceover session feeling pretty hoarse. Are you more mindful to stay clear of anyone complaining of feeling unwell, such as coughs, colds, or flu, as sore throat is often the starting symptom? Bad throat, no Todd show. Emoji. Yeah, absolutely. Once upon a time, and most people did, it was soldier on. You were a hero if you came in and your head's falling to pieces and you got green snot running out and your head's about to explode and you're coughing and you're spluttering. You're a hero. And remember the ads on television, soldier on. These days, no. And because you generally your announcing team is very, very small. And if you take one out, you can take all out. So yeah, I don't walk around spraying sanitizer in people's faces and wearing a mask or putting myself in a bubble. But the standard rule is at the radio station, if you're feeling unwell, then you don't come in, because at the end of the day, that could put most of the team off. How are we going? Have I bored you yet? I hope not. You may still be with me, or you may not be with me, and I may not even still be recording. The technology may have fallen to pieces. Kerry, Todd, you do a fantastic job in radio. Thank you. You're obviously, a person of taste and amazing quality and knowing what's right. I love the music. Do you play? Do you enjoy your work? Look, absolutely, I enjoy my work. I get to go to work every day, play some great music. I get to have some fun. I get to goof off. I hopefully get to help people, and I get to entertain. And I think that's one of the great things that I get to do. And people will often say to me, do you think you're funny? No, I don't think I'm funny. I'm not a comedian, but if I can do something that will make you laugh, put a smile on your face, or inform you, or make your day a little bit brighter, because, Kerry, there are a lot of people who have really horrible jobs that are really, really tough. And there's a lot of people who've got a really tough life. So, no, I love my job. I enjoy it. And I've been blessed, very, very blessed to be able to do that. Marg, hello, Marg. How are you getting on? My thoughts are with you at the moment. What are your clock on and clock off hours each day at 2NURFM, or do they vary? Yeah, generally, as I said, I'm in from about 4:30. I'm generally gone by midday, so I just do an 8-hour day like everyone else. Occasionally I have to work on the weekend to go out and do outside broadcasts, and as the program manager, if something falls over at the radio station, I could be called in to fix it up or take care of something. But yeah, generally, to round it out, 4 till midday is when I'm there. We're starting to work through the questions, only a few more left to go. Matt said, why do you and Mark give Kev Kellaway such a hard time? Poor Kev. Now, if you listen to 2NURFM, you will know that, we love to have fun at the expense of Kev Kellaway. And one of the things that's interesting about 2NURFM, and we are different to other radio stations, that generally at some stations, you don't take the mickey. You don't, give the breakfast announcer a hard time, because they're the star of the show and star of the station, because the breakfast program is the most popular program of the station, as opposed to television. Breakfast is king for radio, nights are king or queen or whatever you want to call it for television. So look, everyone gets on, and the thing with 2NURFM is we all get on very, very well, and we all take the mickey out of each other. The thing with Kev Kellaway is he makes it easy to do. It's morally wrong if someone gives you so much content and so many opportunities to take the mickey out of them. It's un-Australian not to do it. But we love you, Kev, and I have heard that he gives me a little bit of stick back as well. But it's so easy. He's got a glass jaw, and he leads with it. Janet, is there anything you do to take care of your health, such as stress? It must be stressful at times. Look, good question. I'm not a nurse looking after people. I'm not a doctor trying to save their lives. I'm not a pilot looking after passengers, or a bus driver with a bus full of kids and making sure that they get they get where they go. So yeah, it is a little bit stressful because every day you've got to come up with something new. It's, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, that I worked at Steggles, and you would go to Steggles and you would go in and you'd have the job to do. Or I mentioned my dad was a bricklayer, and he would go to the work site every day. And if he had finished a wall or a building there, he would pick it up from there and he'd just keep laying it, and he knew what he had to do. Every day you go in and do something different, and you don't know where the day is going to go. And some days you've got a lot to talk about. Some days you don't have a lot to talk about. And that can be a little bit on the stressful side. As far as taking care of my health, just, yeah, I go for a walk when I get off the air. I try and eat healthy. But nothing much. Just when I'm away from work, I'm away from work. So thank you for your concern. I hope you're not worrying about me. Are you worrying about me? You don't have to worry about me. I'll be okay. Janet, why don't you have ratings like other radio stations? That is a very good question. And I'll try and simplify it. So most towns or cities that have more than one radio station will have a rating period. Capital cities have a lot of them. Newcastle, which is a metropolitan city. Basically, the radio stations that are in the survey and the ratings, they pay for that. They pay for that service. So they all chip in for a ratings company, and it's a bit old-fashioned. In a world of technology, it's still books. You get a book dropped at your door, and what they ask you to do is to fill in which radio station you listen to. So we aren't in those surveys because we're kind of, the other stations haven't invited us to be in that survey. We probably could at some stage, but our role as a community station isn't to compete with commercial radio stations. Our niche is our community and our listenership. So ratings don't really matter to us. We like to put a fantastic program together and a fantastic station. So the commercial stations and the ABC, they're the ones that are battling it all out in the ratings. So no, that's why we're not in the ratings, but we are because we have our own ratings, where the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia does community radio ratings in Newcastle and a lot of towns and cities. And also, if you ever get the chance to see a radio rating, and if you add up the percentages, there's often this little percentage, this number that says other FM, and 2NURFM would come into that other FM, but we don't get mentioned. So generally, community stations aren't there to rate. We are there to provide a service to the community. So we hope we do that. And look, that looks like the very last question. I hope I've managed to answer all your questions, and I hope I haven't bored you too long. So thank you so much to everyone who took the time to send through some questions. I hope it's answered some questions. Now, when this goes to air, as I said, I'm not live, it's pre-recorded, but I'll be lurking in the shadows on Facebook. And if you'd like to leave a comment, I would be more than happy to answer that. If you really like it and you'd like me to do another stream, then that'd be fantastic. I've got an idea and I'd love your thoughts. I reckon we need to have like a Zoom meeting where people can jump in and jump out and we can have a little bit of a chat. So I've got a plan to do that. But at this stage, this is a first for the Todd Sargent radio show and 2NURFM. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you've had a fantastic night, or whenever you may be listening to this later down the line. Take care, and I'll catch you on the radio.